Here I'll completely disagree with the question and disagree with you that it's not wrong. It is wrong. Why? Why? Because at 2-3 levels.
Hello everyone, my name is Madhav and I am a 5th year law student at Dharmashastra National Law University, Jabalpur, and currently I am serving as the editor-in-chief of DNLU Student Law Review. So today with us we have our beloved teacher, Professor Swati Singh Parmar. Professor Swati Singh Parmar is an assistant professor at DNLU. She has an experience of teaching. She has joined the university in 2018 and is also I would say a very famous author with her book titled as an Introduction to International Law, published by Thomson Reuters. So today's idea of podcast is about research, writing, publications and reading. So basically ma'am has authored around 5 book chapters and 10 articles in both national and international reputed journals, along with 2 Scopus Index articles. So ma'am, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Shanishwar, for such kind words, and I think most of those I don't deserve.
That's a modesty, but anyways, the podcast goes in a framework like we'll first be discussing about reading, then we'll be discussing about how to materialize that reading into writing and how to go about publications for new law students who have joined in first and second year basically. So like when like I've been serving in this DNLU student law review. Now what we do is when we sit and we brainstorm about what is writing and what is all those things in meetings, I come up with an idea that basically research is all about reading and then putting it up. So how do you feel about that? Like,
I feel that is a mistake, a very big one that every student does in the formative years, because we are, I think, in this world told to think in a certain way. We all in that way have become capitalistic, result oriented. So we do things to culminate into something. But that's a very tangible goal oriented thing that we have trained our minds into. So you read because reading is a habit, and habits are not artificially meant to achieve something. So habits are those which you understand, which you enjoy and which you cherish forever. So reading something for creating research is one thing which I have learned after 7-8 years is the wrong way. So one should read because one likes reading and not to research. And then research is something that comes naturally to you. So research chooses you, you don't choose your research.
okay, so as you've said about habit of reading, now if I join a law school, if I'm in first year and if I've given CLAT and I join it, now the most difficult thing is to pick up the habit of reading. How do I develop the habit of reading? Now when we come to the law school, we are introduced to hard texts, like texts from international authors, text from maybe Western countries, right? Majorly from Western countries, UK, then US, UK and everything. Now it's very hard to comprehend. Now, and if the students are asked to keep a habit of reading those books, then it becomes a little bit difficult. So, yeah.
Okay, so I think this is a very pertinent question. It's not that student has to be told that you read this and you don't read that. Of course, that is the job of a teacher. But artificially telling individuals who are now adults, and this is a phase of transition from your 12th standard education, school education, to your graduation level. You can't be told and hunted that you have to read this and just read this and why have you not read this? And there you have to understand a very important transition in your life. In school time, you're told to do certain things by your school teachers, and that is how it is meant to be. In graduation, that discipline does not come from outside, it has to come internally. See, so habits like these, they cannot be artificially created. I can't tell you that let's now decide that Shaleshwar will now play guitar. Artificially, I can't compel you to do that. So that has to be cultivated by you and in a very natural, genuine way, not by the hunters of teachers. And that's the decision that you make in your first year. So in your first year, people may tell you to read, people may not tell you to read, but it's a call that you have to take. You have to decide that these are the readings that I have to do, whether or not teachers suggest those reading on a weekly basis in the syllabus or not. But yes, you make your schedule and you try to at least sustain that schedule of reading.
Now, as I've mentioned that no one can be compelled to read. But however, if one has a habit of reading,
Yes.
and now they are in a law school, they obviously want to write research papers so that it looks good on CV. Like a lot of people write, a lot of students are writing it because it looks good on CV. But again, at the same time, even if they're not wrong in doing that, because that is what the industry is demanding nowadays. Like X number of publications, Y number of publications. But if that is being done, now how do we develop an idea when we are reading and how to channelize into writing?
Now, here I'll completely disagree with the question and disagree with you that it's not wrong. It is wrong. Why? Because at 2-3 levels. First, that your and my generation, most of the people of our generation have forgotten that what is primary. And we've made tertiary things primary and primary tertiary. That's the mistake that all of us do. We think that CV is important, publish before you perish, writing, enlisting things that you've done, highlighting, and these wrappers have become so important that the content we have completely lost. So that's what I mentioned in the first answer to your question, that you don't read to achieve something. You do your primary duty, a moral one, of a student, that you have to read. That's what you are here for. So read no matter what. And then other things like research, like writing, like CV, which I don't consider as important because these are the things that follow automatically. You don't have to artificially make a goal that, okay, I have to write a paper, and just for the sake of writing the paper, you connect those cases, articles, books and read, and therefore you also do cherry picking of it.
Yeah.
So that should not happen.
But at the same time, like if I'm reading a particular book or a particular research paper and I get an idea like this is how it is, so how do I approach on developing that idea? Even if it is not for CV, it is just for my writing and I'm really passionate about writing that. How do I develop it?
Okay, so though I would not agree with that style, but for the sake of answering, so whenever you have an idea and you're sure about this, that this may develop into an argument which will form a paper eventually, you have to not be in a hurry. So time constraint, deadline should not be there. This is something which I have learned the hard way. I have always had deadlines and submitted poor quality, not so good articles and have not been happy and have been ashamed about it. So that is a mistake that one should not do. Especially because I think that 5-year stint is also pressure inducing, because you feel that your batchmates are writing something. Every day you see their Facebook posts, tweets, others that, okay, they have written here, like you are one of them who writes so good and so frequently. But then this stress and all those externalities that come with the stress should not work. So yes, on the point that once you have an idea, you, just like you marinate food before preparation, before a good recipe, you marinate your ideas. You don't quickly think that you're so excited, because this generation is about lack of concentration, lack of focus, and too much of excitement, which is very short-lived. So because of excitement, you tend to write something in shabbily with your not trimmed arguments submitted to any place. Better than that would be a situation where you think about an idea, let it stay in your mind and heart. Your interactions with teachers, with your peer, your readings inside the college, outside the college, everything develops layers of marination on that idea. And then once that idea is actually mature, then you look for options that, okay, this is the journal where I have to submit, or this is a blog post where I would like my blog to be there. Not be in a hurry just for the sake of writing and publishing.
Okay, this question I guess would be condescending to your earlier statement. If you answer like, basically teachers cannot be a hunter, like you have to read this. But at the same time, like, do you have any recommendation for our viewers, like what they need to start reading, if they're starting to read, some recommendations?
Okay, I think that so let us take the example of DNLB Honors, 5 years law course. It is designed in a very beautiful way. Although I'm not happy how it is being implemented, but it is designed in a very beautiful way. The primary reason that I say this is because in the formative few semesters or years, you get to learn fantastic non-law subjects, which are elementary for your understanding of law. So economics, political science, history, sociology, these are very important subjects. And the basic text by political scientists, by sociologists, by economists, these are very important. So whether or not your teacher asks you to say that, if you understand those phenomena, you understand how law functions in the society. Because law also, in a way, challenges you to think in a very arrogant way that law is the panacea, which it is not. Because law is just one of the instruments of social change. There are many others. So I think those texts one must read. So like I would suggest political scientists like John Austin, Jeremy Bentham, Rousseau, these are preliminary texts that can either be a blessing or a boon, because they may tell you that this is a boring field. They may tell you that there's nothing fascinating in the world as law is.
So as you have mentioned about the basic of reading and how we should read the basic text first. Now, you have had started a center in this university that is for legal theories. So how the idea was conceived and how do you see it, the center, how it's contributing?
Okay, so the center is named Center for Studies in Legal Theory. It started 2 years back. The idea was, of course, for it to develop as a research center. And why the center focused on legal theory was that jurisprudence and legal theory have been neglected by students and by teachers. And ultimately, students are the ones who become teachers, so teachers also are not very interested in legal theory. But across the globe, we are seeing a revamp in the way we have seen legal theory. All of a sudden, we see so many professors who are talking about legal theory. You have Scott Shapiro, you have Tarnav Khaitan, you have Adil Haq. And these fantastic scholars have revived the global debates on legal theory and interest of a global student in legal theory. So with that in mind, I thought that why not discuss legal theory at DNLU and beyond, and have students, teachers and peers discuss about these texts and maybe some new reflection on the existing text.
Yeah, basically I've seen that now there's a special emphasis on the philosophy of constitution. Like it was missing.
Yes.
Earlier texts were like Sirvai wrote a criticism of the constitution, which is considered as a very good critique of the constitution. That was on the philosophical part. Then D.D. Basu came and MP Jain came. But these books were very basic. They only taught us what is this article, and what the constitution said. Now we are seeing a wave that is coming in philosophical terms. Like
Yes.
you have invited Professor Akash Singh Rathore on the same idea of how preamble how he has reflected the preamble in a whole book.
Yes.
While discussing Ambedkar's philosophy. So yeah,
Constitution as an Ambedkarite document. Right?
yeah.
Right.
So yep. So basically, I was wondering, like, is the center going to take up more such things?
Of course, because I think the mandate of center is so huge, especially with the phrase legal theory attached, that I think I'll never be able to justify it. And even if it does a lot, it will be nothing in the field of legal theory, and it has not been able to do a lot. So yes, I intend to see people discussing and revisiting the old concepts, as you said. Also like transformative constitutionalism, talking about constitution as a document of transformation, such a nuanced idea. And talking about the existing legal philosophies, be it criminal law, procedural law, evidence law, as very important sites of jurisprudence and philosophical debates, which otherwise they've not been seen as. Like in Indian legal education, I personally am not aware of many thinkers who talk about the jurisprudence of procedural law, which otherwise is a very fascinating field of law. So yes, revisiting those things and opening new gates is definitely on the cards.
Yeah. So moving forward, now we have dealt with the idea of reading first. Now we'll be going to the writing part, which I think is one of the most important parts after reading, because if you do not read, so how would you write? So basically, when one should start writing. I've seen a lot of my juniors writing from the first month they came into the university. I've been following a lot of them on LinkedIn. I see students from other universities also, they start writing first month into law university and they start publishing. So how to feel confident and how to start writing, how to know that I am like, now I can write?
So I think that's a very tough question, very tough question. So you can compete with an athlete with knowing the context of that athlete, knowing especially his diet. Again, to write and to be able to perform that as a writer athlete, you have to make very sure that your diet is very good. And by diet, I mean reading again. So reading guides you, reading helps you navigate on how do you write. So for example, I'll take this through an example. So if you're reading articles of a few category of journals, maybe journals on international law, maybe journals on human rights, journals on constitution, like ICAN. If you're reading that set of journals coming from one domain in which you also are interested in your third, fourth, fifth semester, then you are not only reading the text, you're not reading the content, but you're reading the arguments. You're reading through the eyes of author. You are seeing the articulation, you're seeing the language, you're seeing the central claim, you're seeing how evidences are given to prove or disprove that claim. You read the text through the footnotes, you see the bibliography, you see the endnote, and I think that has a very important effect on you in terms of teaching you how to write. Right. So similarly, I think that's true for blogs also. So if you follow one or two blogs regularly on an yearly basis, after a year, you certainly will be in a position to write at those blogs.
Now, another question is, like, I've been very blessed. Like, I could always approach my professors about, I'm writing this and please review this. I'm writing this, please review this. So most of the time, they have been very humble to reply and to actually go through my text and tell me that this is wrong, and you have to go about this topic in a certain manner, and you have to read this also, and you're lacking here. So how does a law student must approach his professor, his or her professor, while writing? How to take comments from the professors? Like, Indian law professors are really busy. Given that they have to take a lot of classes, then they have to evaluate the students on a regular basis, and also balancing their personal life. So how to go about, how to approach professors?
So yes, I think in academia, in legal academia, people have been kind enough. I have the same experiences. So whenever I send my paper for comments, they do comment back, give the feedback sooner or later. But then I think on this point, yes, you are free to talk, mail or text a teacher to send his or her feedbacks. But yes, you do that only once you are 100% sure about your writing, so that you don't waste on his or her time and energy. But then this should not stay only within your university. You can do this outside the university as well. So if you read a text from Farah Ahmed from Oxford, and you were very intrigued by her argument, and you write something on that, countering or sustaining that, and you're sure about your text, very sure, you can send her directly that this is my take on your argument from that paper, and how do you see this? And I think comments from people like that, from the author source, would also be a very good thing. But then again, one important thing that these are examples, secluded ones, of taking feedback of one person. Instead of this, a better situation that I would suggest is, if you have a peer group, like we are going to have one for faculty members soon at DNLU. So if you have a peer group where you discuss your research ideas and arguments, where you have your peers sitting around you, critiquing you, supporting you, telling you that these are the things of improvement, places of improvement, that would really be a very good brainstorming session in true sense. For example, you would be aware of Junior Faculty Forum or other forums like that across European and American universities. So almost all the universities have their Junior Faculty Forum, their student forums where they have these kind of activities.
Actually, this reminds me of an anecdote. While I was in second year, I guess, I had written this blog about, there was this some book review, and I had written this, and it had somewhere Ambedkar Nehru debate and something. And I just sent the blog to Professor Akash Singh Rathore. Now, I had no expectations that he would reply or something, and I just sent it, and I slept over it. Now, after a few days, I received a reply and comments on each part of it, like why you have mentioned this, and do you have any sources on this? And then, basically reaching out to like people actually helps. And then I was, then he asked me to assist him in some researches that were going on, and that he was writing a book, and I was asked to assist him. So I think that opens a lot of gate. But again, you have mentioned that you have to be sure about your writing. Now, my another question that would come
That is a perfectionist question.
that how to feel confident about writing. I remember Professor Tanurab Khaitan writing on Twitter and saying that even HLA Hart had anxieties about his scholarship.
Yes.
Now, how do I feel confident about writing? Until unless it gets published, I think once it gets published, it's like hectic khatam ho gaya. But before that, it's always like if you check your email, then you like, I could have mentioned this, I could have mentioned that, I could have mentioned this. So how to feel confident? Now it's time to send in.
See, I don't subscribe to this opinion. I would not say that you have to feel confident. If you're feeling confident, you're certainly doing something wrong. A good writer or a good reader has to be underconfident. You never have to be confident about your writing, because you're confident, that means that that's culmination of knowledge, which even an hermit cannot achieve. So you've not on that achieved that culmination point. So you should not be confident about what you're writing, and that sustains your quest of reading more. So being confident, I think teachers, academicians should not be confident about the work.
Now moving on to the very next topic, that is publication. And I think that is a question that fascinates a lot of people, how to go about publication, how to identify a journal. This is something like how to identify a journal, like whether I should be sending article to this journal or that journal, which one has a better standard, how to identify that for a newbie in law school.
Yes, I'll answer this question in the backdrop of my previous answers, that once you're reading good text, you would certainly send the text that you write, most probably, not certainly, but yes, most probably may go to a good journal. So reading also guides you the places where you can send your article or blogs. But yes, again, maybe you're not reading through good sources, and you think that, okay, the source is a good one. So that of course is a problem. Knowing what to read, what not to read is one thing that you learn from your teachers. So teachers have to be not only motivators, but actually teachers in the sense of school teaching, to tell you that, okay, this is the kind of text that you should read, this is the text that you should not read. So if you look up to someone best in the field that you like, so for example, in the field of constitutional law, if you know two best people, one best constitutional law lawyer from India and one best constitutional law teacher in India, and if you're following their works, and maybe someone from outside beyond India, I think that will help you in telling that what are the platforms you should choose and what are the platforms you should not choose.
Then again, like good platforms, I've seen nowadays a lot of people are writing, and the next day the article gets published on some or the other journal, which because in the COVID wave I've seen there were a lot of journals which came out, a lot of journals, and those journals are sometimes asking money. Those journals are assuring certificates and all those things, which we call as predatory journals. So how do we avoid predatory journals? How do we know that the particular journal is a predatory journal for somebody?
Okay, so predatory journals are one which are not legitimate in the eyes of legal academia, and those are the journals where for the name's sake you have peer review, you have blind peer review or double blind peer review, but actually there is none. And whatever articles are sent to those journals, they are accepted no matter what. And the review process is very short. So once you send an article, it is reviewed blindly by deleting your name and your whereabouts. and then it is sent for review of the content. And this may be done twice or thrice depending upon the journal's called. But if journals are skipping these steps and there is dishonesty in these steps, then do you classify a journal as a predatory one, which are many number in, if you talk about India. Now, sending your journal, your article to a journal and being sure that it will be accepted, in most of the cases, be sure that that's a predatory journal. So when you send your article to a journal which is indexed, so indexing is one answer to how to find whether a journal is predatory or not. But then there are predatory indexing systems also. So there are ways to dodge indexing system too. But then the known indexing systems, like in case of India, UGC Care by University of Pune. And in case of international standards, there is Scopus, there's Web of Science, there's Australian ABDC, and there are others. So if you know these indexes and if you go and check the names of the journal, then you'll find if it is indexed or not. So that is an identifier of whether a journal is a reputed one or not. But let me add a disclaimer. If a journal is not indexed in Scopus, Web of Science, ABDC, or for that matter UGC Care, doesn't mean that that's a bad journal. There may be very good journals which are not indexed. Like the journals which are not in Scopus, that they go in Scopus. For example, in the Science flagship journal, which was added to Scopus. So before adding to Scopus, we can't say that that was not good. That was, of course, very good. Was quoted by our Honorable Supreme Court many a times.
So basically, like our university has 13 centers. Now, it is a supplementary question to the previous question that I had asked. Now, our university has 13 centers in all. There are 2 journals that are coming. So do you think choosing a journal which is attached to a university or a center, like our university has 13 centers, so they might be coming up with certain journals. There are few centers which are running journals, and we have running journals in student review also and in faculty review also. So do you think this is a safer side to choose?
Yes, of course. So for a law student, the safest kind of journal is journal of any law school or law university. Of course, that is there because you know that it is run by academics. It is evaluated, and at least you presume that the journal is run honestly with some amount of fairness and justness. So, of course, yes, that is the safest option that I'll say.
Now, like previous question, you had mentioned about blog writing also. So, this is a question coming to my mind. Like, should blog writing be an exercise in in law universities? I've seen it's in Jindal, I guess. Jindal subscribes to this idea that they make it as a project to write and get the blog published. So do you think this should be an exercise?
See, I know this question because this question you asked me 1 year back. Yeah. So I know this question. And at that time also I said that no, this should not be a compulsory exercise for everyone because again, teachers are not teachers with hunters. The only authority that we can have over a student is a moral one, and that is driven with mutual respect between teacher and student. So we can't mandatorily ask each and every student to write, at least at this stage of legal education. But yes, there are universities abroad which for the papers they teach, you are solely 100% evaluated on the essay that you write, that may or may not eventually get published. Yes, blog writing, although it cannot be made compulsory, I don't know whether it can be or not. So I don't know the administrative practicability of that argument. But then blog writing, of course, is a very important learning step for research, writing and beyond, because this I tell to my students that law is a field where you can't function without reading and researching. So don't cloud your mind with the fact that I'm going to be a lawyer, so I don't have to research. Research is only academics. No, it's not. Research is life of a student, and reading, and so is reading. So even if, do you know about a very good lawyer in the city, in the state, or in India who does not read, who does not research? Do you know about a judge who does not read? So judges, lawyers, or whatever law career you choose after your 5 year stint, you will not make a better one if you don't read or research.
My next question is about popular publications. Nowadays, there has been a penetration where a lot of law students, a lot of lawyers, and a lot of academicians are writing for popular forums, including the Hindu, the Telegraph, and all these kind of newspapers, the Wire, for instance. So, do you think it has impacted, like it impacts the academia in a certain way?
I don't know. Your question has one direction of traffic. I think it is it done the other way. So it's not that whether that affects academia or not, but it's about the moral duty and responsibility that people in academia have towards the society at large. So, and there are two schools on it. So few people say that academics should write only for readers in academia, and there's a school which says that no, academics should write for academia, plus for larger people, because what you're researching, discussing, adding to the domain of law, that you're doing eventually for the masses. So why don't you connect to the masses and tell them? So in the sense of the moral responsibility that we have to simplify legal processes, international or national, and put it as a debate, as an op-ed in any of the newspapers, I think is a very good style of creating awareness and keeping people and students up to date to whatever is happening in the legal academy.
Now going to the last part of this podcast. Basically, I've seen a lot of critiques that for an IP, for instance, Sanjeev Dhawan and Sanjay Ghosh, and earlier we had a program of what they would teach you at your school, and Ghosh. And earlier we had a program of what they don't teach you at law school, and Mr. Gautam Narayan, who's an advocate on record, said that you have to read a lot. For being a good lawyer, it does not matter if you come from first generation, second generation, or third generation.
Absolutely.
But you got to read a lot, then you have to write a lot. Now, in terms of writing, I may be wrong, I may be right, but I don't think he was talking about writing petitions and those kind of drafting, but he was writing about what you understand, what you're reading, then conceptualizing that. So do you think reading, writing helps in conceptualizing law with clarity?
Of course it does. So maybe not in the way you think, but maybe in some other sense it does. Because if you're reading something and eventually if you're convinced that you'll have to write something on whatever you've read, and you write. So writing is again a research activity where you read so much extensively. So reading may be horizontal, but writing is always vertical, reading, researching in depth. And once you do that, you're so thorough about your arguments. Of course, it places you at a better platform than other people who have not researched on that area. So of course it adds.
I think a lot of my beliefs are like trembling, over here. But
on that note, I think I told your batch when your batch was in first semester that the only thing that you have to learn coming after the school education that tells you to memorize, internalize, put formulas on fingertips is to unlearn everything. So don't have this pressure that you have to publish. Don't have this pressure that you have to read this text. Read to enjoy. Research to enjoy, and it's the only way it can sustain.
I think DNLU in that terms has given us a lot of freedom to
not read or read.
To read, obviously, to read whatever you want to read.
Yes.
Instead of, like, we have you as a professor, Manvaendra sir as a professor, then there are a lot of people who are actually allowing us to read and then to debate on that. For example, Aashir sir is also, who is allowing us to actually debate constitution in the classes, and it's not narrative that you have to put in a particular certain manner. You have to read constitution, or for that matter jurisprudence or any other subject, but you could always debate in classes. So I think we have got that academic freedom to, but again, coming to the last question, it will be last question, right? So basically writing, reading and publications are associated, and now also it's a conventional trend that in our batch also, in our juniors also, people think to associate it with LLM. If you're writing, you might be aspiring for LLM or higher education, and it is just not for your sake. So do you think it is important for foreign LLMs writing? And another thing is that, are these writings only for LLM?
Okay.
I know the other part, but for the views, right?
Yes. So, no, I'll answer the second part of the question first. So, no, these writings are not for LM. These writings are, as I said, not for achieving a result, a goal. These writings are just for yourself. So you become a better human after reading and writing and researching. You become a better human after reading fields like law. So it's not to bring some tangible goal that you can showcase as a trophy at your home. Let's see, I have this salary package. See, I have this placement. But it is something that does a lot more beyond it, because it alters you at, I believe, a genetic level, changes you, your horizons, your perspectives, gives you an exposure which I think nothing else, maybe travel can give. So it's not result oriented. It need not culminate into a tangible form. But that intangible form is supreme, like love, like feeling, supreme, better than money or phone or table of flowers. So I'm coming to the first part, that yes, if you have to apply to NLM at some foreign university, at some places in the application, you're asked about your example writing. So you have to showcase your writing, which is published somewhere, as an example of your candidature that speaks about your reading, writing, and research. But then that's not all. And if you write for the 5 years time period that you spend at DNLU, if you think about some idea and write and let it marinate and culminate into a beautiful one, and when you're sure about it, and when you send it, when it's rejected by one place and sent to another, and eventually it's published, you have that one article as an example, that will be the best one, because you've given your 5 years or at least 3 years to that. Contrasting this situation to another situation where you are told that you have to write, you have peer pressure, you have to tweet, and you write endlessly in the rat race, and you write a lot, but you don't achieve quality. So quantity wise, yes, there's a lot. On CV, you can see a lot of things written on different law fields, and that's not wrong. That's also a very good practice. But compare this situation to another situation where you've given time to your idea, to your paper, to marinate and develop bloom into a new beautiful tree. So I think that I would subscribe to that first situation, that write when you actually feel you're ready, and when your writing chooses you, you don't choose your writing.
So concluding with an anecdote, like somebody had told me earlier that no matter how much you earn, no matter what car you are buying, no matter what house you are buying, it is not going to stay with you. But even if you die, even if you die 100 years down the line, people, if you have written something good, people are going to read that. So yes. I think it stays. So with that, thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.